Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for July 8th, 2025. Open house reservations are now available for interior tours of the newly constructed Grand Junction, Colorado Temple. Guests will be welcomed Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. starting Thursday, September 11th, and continuing through Saturday, September 27th, 2025. No tours will be offered on Sundays. Admission is free, but reservations are recommended. On April 4th, 2021, President Russell M. Nelson announced plans to construct the Grand Junction, Colorado Temple at the 191st Annual General Conference. Colorado, in the Intermountain West of the United States, is home to over 150,000 Latter-day Saints and around 310 congregations. How many people is that per congregation? 275 wards and 35 branches. As always, let's do some math. 150,000 members divided into 310 congregations would mean that there are roughly 484 people showing up at church each week. We all know those wards are not bursting at the seams, and those branches are absolutely not hosting 484 people each week. In similar news, Elder Neil L. Anderson of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles will preside at the groundbreaking services for the Tampa, Florida Temple on Saturday, August 23, 2025. The 29,000 square foot temple will be constructed on a 12-acre site located at 9445 Camden Fields Parkway, Riverview, Florida. It will be the fourth temple constructed in the state of Florida, joining the Orlando, Florida Temple, Fort Lauderdale, Florida Temple, and Tallahassee, Florida Temple. A fifth temple has been announced for Jacksonville. The church claims 176,291 members in 278 congregations in Florida, 22 wards, and 56 branches, which means that for that to be true and accurate, there would need to be approximately 634 people showing up in each of those congregations each week, including the branches. Now let's go to the ex-Mormon subreddit for this post that says, "The final sure sign of the nail in the coffin of my marriage. My most beloved cat ever recently passed away. We were buds. I had a closer bond with him than I've had with most people. He got really sick and we ended up at the emergency vet. Over the next several days, the cost of treatment exceeded $4,000 and wasn't really doing any good. So I made the agonizing decision to end his suffering. I was beyond devastated. Rather than console me or show any love or compassion at all, do you know what my soon-to-be ex-wife said? We didn't have these kinds of expenses before you stopped paying tithing. We had a mixed faith marriage truce up to that point, but weaponizing the death of my beloved pet to guilt me into paying money to the cult, that was the last straw. We've kept this corpse of a marriage on life support for 5 years since my faith deconstruction, but there's no forgiving that shit. F the mother effing Mormon cult." Tithing is such a contested and highly debated topic, and I think the brethren like it that way. There is always the "do I pay on net or gross income" discussion, and it's exhausting. Leaving what tithing is open to interpretation also allows for bishops to define it as they please. When I lived in Southeast Alaska, one year not long after tithing settlement, the branch president chastised the entire branch because he said he knew there were some members who were not paying tithing on their dividends. The Alaska Permanent Fund dividend is an annual payment made to eligible Alaska residents from the earnings of the Alaska Permanent Fund. This fund was established in 1976 by amending the state's constitution, dedicating at least 25% of the state's oil royalty revenues to a permanent savings account. The PFD's purpose is to share a portion of the state's mineral wealth directly with its citizens, providing a tangible benefit from Alaska's natural resources. Dividend checks came out in October, and everyone who receives one gets the same amount. At tithing settlement, the branch president looked over the donations of everyone in the branch and figured out those who he thought could not have paid tithing on their dividend checks. In the October General Conference of 2002, Robert D. Hales said, "To those who faithfully and honestly live the law of tithing, the Lord promises an abundance of blessings. Some of these blessings are temporal, just as tithes are temporal. But like the outward physical ordinances of baptism and the sacrament, the commandment to pay tithing requires temporal sacrifice, which ultimately yields great spiritual blessings. I know of a couple who lived thousands of miles from the nearest temple. Although they earned little, they faithfully paid their tithing and saved all that they could to journey to the house of the Lord. After a year, the husband's brother, not a member of the church, unexpectedly came forward and offered them 2 airplane tickets. This temporal blessing made possible the spiritual blessings of their temple endowments and sealing. An additional spiritual blessing came later as the brother, touched by the couple's humble faithfulness, joined the church. This narrative and others like it frame one's relationship with God as a quid pro quo exchange. If you pay X, God will give you Y. This reduces faith to a financial transaction, implying that divine blessings are contingent on monetary contributions. If blessings don't materialize, it can lead to the belief that one hasn't paid enough, paid correctly, or that God is withholding, fostering guilt, shame, and self-blame rather than encouraging unconditional faith or resilience through hardship. For individuals or families struggling financially, such stories can create immense pressure to sacrifice essential needs, food, housing, or healthcare in the desperate hope of a miraculous temporal blessing. It preys on their vulnerability by suggesting that their financial well-being is directly tied to their tithing compliance rather than encouraging sound financial stewardship or acknowledging broader economic realities. When the promised blessings don't appear, it can deepen financial despair. This example that Robert D. Hales gave is an anecdote, a single story of a positive outcome. While potentially inspiring, these stories are not generalizable or verifiable. They leverage confirmation bias, where people remember instances that fit the narrative, like the airplane tickets appearing after tithing, while ignoring countless instances where faithful tithe payers still face severe temporal hardships, or where blessings occur independently of tithing. This selective storytelling can create unrealistic expectations and invalidate the genuine struggles of those who don't experience such direct, visible returns. Now let's go to Becky Squire on Instagram. She is a very pro-LDS influencer. She says, "When church is hard or you don't feel like going, church attendance is down across all regions." This is probably my favorite statement from her. Sometimes members say the quiet part out loud, and it is fantastic. She then says, "Some members say, 'I still believe, I just don't go anymore.' Is that enough?" President Nelson said, "In the church, we need each other. That's why the Lord organized us into wards and branches. Skipping church doesn't make you evil, but it does mean missing covenant connections." Framing non-attendance as missing covenant connections elevates the social organizational activity, aka church meetings, to a spiritual necessity for one's relationship with God. This spiritual consequence can be a powerful motivator that bypasses individual choice or personal spiritual practice, making absence feel like a spiritual deficit. She then says, "Your worth isn't tied to attendance, but full discipleship includes showing up even when it's hard, awkward, or imperfect." The statement, "your worth isn't tied to attendance, but," immediately undermines the initial reassurance. The but clause creates a condition for full discipleship and perfection, implying that while your inherent worth is not tied to it, your spiritual progress and relationship with God effectively are. This can induce guilt in those who don't attend regularly, suggesting they are incomplete disciples. She then says, "And if this message isn't for you, then this one is. Let's be better at making church a place people want to return to. You don't need to be perfect to show up, but sometimes showing up is part of becoming perfected. Wow, I think she thinks that she was really clever there. But this last clause creates a subtle double bind. It offers initial leniency, but then reintroduces the idea of perfection as the ultimate goal, achieved through the very act of being pushed, attendance. This can trap individuals in a cycle where they feel compelled to attend to achieve a desired spiritual state. Essentially, Becky's message employs a strategy of softened coercion. It appears compassionate and understanding, but consistently redirects the individual toward compliance with the institutional norm, which is attendance, by linking it to deeply held spiritual values, personal worth, and ultimately perfection, thereby leveraging spiritual guilt and the desire for belonging. Now let's go to Provo, Utah, where approximately 90% of the population is Mormon, including the mayor, Michelle Kaufusi, for this article from KSL that says, "For the last 3 years, dozens of women and men have been attending Dirty Licious dance fitness classes at the Provo Recreation Center until the city unexpectedly shut down the program last month. It's a fun, empowering dance program designed to help individuals, primarily women, feel confident, healthy, and connect with others through dance," said Erica Tanner, the CEO of Dirty Licious Dance Fitness. There were 4 active classes at the Provo Rec Center due to strong demand and a thriving program, Tanner said, noting that even Provo officials have raved about the program in the past and city employees have attended before. Suddenly, last month, however, the instructors were told the classes would be canceled. Tanner learned from city officials that a man had recently seen a Dirty Licious video filmed at the Provo Recreation Center a year prior and complained to the city government that some of the dancing was inappropriate for a rec center. The city then reviewed the recordings and social media and agreed that the program was inappropriate and didn't align with the city's values, moral standards, or policies. Tanner and her husband and business partner then met with city officials to try to work something out, asking what guidelines had been broken and how they could adjust to keep the classes. "We asked for specific examples of what they didn't like or specific dance moves. We asked what policies the instructors broke or what parameters were inappropriate. We asked many times for clarification, and it was discovered there was nothing they could reference," she said. "They were pretty much asking our instructors to abide by policies that had never been created and our instructors had never been made aware of." After several meetings where Tanner said she was open to change, the city told Tanner last week that her instructors were terminated at the Provo Recreation Center and all Dirty Licious classes are officially canceled forever. "It was communicated to us through just an email very plainly, saying they decided to move in a different direction that aligns with current goals and programming," Tanner said. In an email to Tanner, Recreation Center manager Kathy Smits said she reviewed class recordings and content on social media from the classes and compared them to standards of conduct for the city's public facilities. "During our review, we identified elements of the program that did not align with these established standards," Smits wrote, but did not elaborate about any specific elements. "I believe the decision to discontinue the class is both appropriate and reasonable." Now, I looked up Kathy Smits, and while she did have a reference to studying at BYU on her social media, I could not confirm that she is Mormon. Back to the article. "Why was Dirty Licious singled out when we follow the same norms, same standards, same unwritten policies as other city-sanctioned fitness programs? We never have been given a real answer still. Many in the community who supported or participated in the program are not happy with the decision. Dozens of negative Google reviews have been left online for the rec center, citing disappointment and outrage at the class's cancellation. It has been so wild. I'm talking hundreds of women and men are speaking out. Memberships are being canceled. Reviews are being posted. The outcry is real because Dirty Licious Dance Fitness meant something to these people." More than 200 people have signed a petition to reinstate the classes, and community members are encouraging people to reach out to city officials on the issue. If I was going to sum this up, I would say one man saw a video of a dance class, felt uncomfortable, and now an entire city is denied a form of community building, recreation, and exercise. This is not okay. This is a classic form of victim blaming. It implies that that man's thoughts or actions are the class's responsibility rather than his own. It absolves that individual man of accountability for his internal reactions and his subsequent behavior, placing the burden squarely on the class to regulate their expression to manage that man's thoughts and feelings. Do better, City of Provo. Do better. And last up today, let's finish with this great quote that says, "Please stop encouraging reconciliation when the person who caused the harm hasn't shown an ounce of remorse. Pushing for peace without accountability only protects the abuser, not the one who has been hurt. Healing cannot happen when the person responsible denies, minimizes, or refuses to take responsibility. Hold the mindset that emotional healing and reconnection are not automatic. They are earned through change, not forced through guilt. Real healing honors truth, not silence." And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.